we are going to take a look at example 9 in the book. This is a standard geometry problem. It's a word problem though, so it's going to make some of you a little nervous. Remember that when you do a word problem, you should always define your variables first. And in this problem, the problem has asked us to find the length and the width. So we are actually going to try to find the length and the width in this problem. When you have a geometry problem, you want to draw a picture, whatever the problem's talking about. And your book actually drew a picture for you because in this problem you have to know that a soccer field is actually a rectangle. There are some formulas that you will be expected to remember from previous classes. One is perimeter of a rectangle. Perimeter of a rectangle is 2 times length plus 2 times width. You also may be asked to recall the area of a rectangle. The area of a rectangle is length times width. You may be asked about squares. The area of a square is side squared, and the perimeter of a square is 4 times the length of a side. So you may be asked to recall those formulas without being given those in the problem. Now, since this particular problem talks about the perimeter of a rectangle, and I'm going to draw my rectangle. It's a little crooked. I still have trouble getting used to this tablet. But we're also talking about perimeter, so I'm going to write down my formula just so I don't forget what I'm doing here. And I'm going to try to underline some key things in this problem. First of all, I want to recall that I'm trying to find the length and the width. When I read the first sentence, it tells me something about the length. It says the length of the largest regulation soccer field is 30 yards greater than the width. Now I'm going to define my variables first. That's what you want to do first and foremost in a word problem. You say let maybe L equal length. And maybe you want to make that a cursive L so that you can tell it's not a 1. That's a beautiful cursive L, I know. And maybe let W be the width so that when you're finished with the problem, you're very clear about what you're looking for. Now, we also know that perimeter equals 2 plus 2W. The very first sentence of the problem says the length is 30 greater than the width. That's an equation in of itself. Every time you see the word is in something, you're going to probably assume that's an equation. We know we have a variable for length, so we could actually write length is stands for equals, and you should have learned that in a previous algebra course. We have 30, so I'm just going to write down 30. Greater than. Now in math, greater than actually means addition, and it says the width. So I have an equation right here, a separate equation. I have 2 equations, one for perimeter and one for length. So here's my length. If I label my picture, I have 30 plus W. Now, you don't know what the width is. They tell you nothing about that. They, however, tell you that perimeter is equal to 460 yards. Now, in a geometry problem, if you get things labeled correctly, everything else seems to fall into place. In this particular problem, we have a formula. P equals 2L plus 2W. And we have things to substitute into that formula. We have P, which is 460, so I'm going to put 460 right here. We actually have L. It's 30 plus W. So everywhere I see an L, I'm going to write 30 plus W. We don't have a W, so it's going to have to stay exactly what it is. Now look at this equation. As long as you have an equation that only has one variable and not 2, so we wouldn't want to have the L and the W in there, you can solve it. You can solve it by hand, or you can solve it on the calculator. We talked about how to solve this in the calculator. What you do is put in 460 for Y1 and this right-hand side of the equation for y2 if you wanted to solve it on the calculator. If you want to solve it by hand, we're going to distribute on the right-hand side. So we would have 60 plus 2w. So this is this part. Plus 2w. So here we actually have 460 is equal to 60 plus 4w. Now we can move the 60 to the other side and we get 400. And remember, the last step in solving any equation is to divide. So if we divide both sides by 4, we get w equals 100. And if we go way back up here and check, if we know that w is 100, then 30 plus w, so 30 plus 100, would be my length. So length would be 130. And we've said that w is 100. Now we need to check it and make sure it's right. 2 times length, so 2 times 130 would be 260. And 2 times w, 2 times 100 would be 200. 200 plus 260 is 460, and that's my perimeter. Always check and make sure that it makes sense. You might even want to write a sentence at the very bottom that summarizes what you've done. Maybe you could say, the length for this problem is 130 yards. The width for this problem is 100 yards. But every time you see a geometry type problem like this, you want to draw a picture and try to label it. Try to find a formula that works for it.